So Ben, I think it's been about 11 or 12 years since we got City Bike in New York City. And at this point, it's almost like the air we breathe. It's just part of our daily life in
Yeah.
New York City. But there are still some issues, that follow from the legacy of the Bloomberg administration saying this has to be a for-pay system that the city isn't subsidizing. We find the rates are going up. I just looked, I'm paying more than $200 a year for my annual membership. The question of coverage, what's on New York City's bicycling agenda in terms of next steps for our bike share system?
Yeah, I think the vision of a universal citywide, high quality, low cost to monthly user bike share system is a really powerful vision. And I think there's lots of ways to get there. I think lots of other cities across the country more directly subsidize their bike share systems than we do here.
Did
And,
not know
and
that.
that blend of city contract directly for the operations of the system, user fees, sponsorships. There's all sorts of ways to fund a bike share system. But I think at the end of the day, what we really need is something that a lot of different kinds of people can use in a lot of different kinds of neighborhoods and work to make sure the infrastructure is there so people feel comfortable hopping on a bike no matter what neighborhood they're in.
When we first launched the system, a big part of the rationale was public health. And
Yeah.
I know that the Bloomberg administration, that's part of what swung them behind the whole program. But it seems to me, at least where I live up in Harlem, that the census of the e-bikes is really high. Like sometimes you can't find a non-motorized bike. And it seems to me like that means the public health rationale has sort of fallen away. Is that what you see from the people in government who you speak to in your role at TA?
One thing I'd say is there's all sorts of different reasons why people hop on a bike. Like a lot of people hop on a bike for exercise. People hop on a bike just because it can be a convenient and efficient way to get around. And I think it makes sense to have a bike share system that reflects all those different kinds of people and all those different kinds of trips that people might take. So if I'm out biking loops in the park today, trying to get some much needed exercise, that's one reason to get on a bike. But maybe I'm just going over to Prospect Lefferts Gardens to visit a friend and it's a convenient way to get there, and I'll grab an electric city bike to do that trip. And I think that's good, and it's nice to have a blend of these different reasons.
Okay. Um, and do you think, though, that government should play any role in trying to foster certain behaviors by, stepping in to the program and saying this is how it should be priced, motorized versus non-motorized, or even whether it should be publicly subsidized the way those other cities do?
I would really look at the goals backwards. So see what would it take to have a system that has really high usership, right? People want to be
This
able.
is probably the
Yeah.
top system in the country,
It,
right?
it's I think both the largest and the highest ridership system in the country, and I think it's important for us to have a government that sees its value, sees that there's way more people out there who'd love to take City Bike than do currently, and why aren't they doing it? Maybe there's not a dock in a convenient location. Maybe they can't afford it. Maybe the infrastructure feels a little bit too harrowing for them personally, though I think it's getting better every day. And so I think government should be pushing on all of those things, right? Even better bike network, higher quality, better connections, fewer gaps in the protected bike lane network, a bike share system that is affordable to way more people, discounts for young people, senior citizens, maybe public employees should get more discounts to encourage a lot more bike loving across the city government.
Yeah, that would be a great idea.
And I think just having it be the case that if I'm looking to get some exercise, maybe there's a conventional bike, and if I want to hop on a bike to get someplace in a very convenient way, maybe I'll grab an electric bike. But I think both of those have a place on our streets.
So, in terms again of the legacy that we have, a for-profit corporation running our
Yeah.
bike share system, which has some advantages as well as disadvantages, what's the communication and coordination like between the operator of New York City Bike Share and the New York City DOT? Is it as close as it was back in the day?
I sense that it could be a little bit more coordinated, although I don't want to speak for either of them. I think, I think DOT does a pretty good job trying to get the bike share system pretty well integrated into the protected bike lane network. I mean, I think at its best, you have a bike share station that's right next to a protected bike lane, so someone can grab a bike, hop on the bike network,
Or transit hub?
get where they need to go. I think there's a lot of politics associated with the siting of these siting of the bike share stations. They're not always, with the best possible place for one reason or another. And I think, there's always room for improvement. I would say, like, Lyft put a huge amount of money into expanding the system. I think it was useful at that point of time. But I do think it's always worth the city asking, like, this is an enormous benefit to the people of New York. This is an incredible service. We're getting it really for a steal, right? I mean, there's an enormous amount of opportunity to expand it further if we're willing to, make a little investment like we do the ferry system, like taxpayers as a whole do for the bus system. Definitely the fact that all of our tax dollars go into maintaining the roads and bridges for vehicular traffic, even though only about half of us actually have a car to drive. There's all sorts of ways in which we support
Have
transportation.
access to a car, why
Yeah.
not if you
Yeah.
own one? So for the people who aren't yet served by City Bike in their neighborhood in New York City, my understanding is there's kind of this Goldilocks zone. There's a certain level of density and
Yeah.
certain other characteristics of a neighborhood that make it likely or ripe for the next expansion.
Yeah.
What are the outer ring of neighborhoods now that we're going to be looking at over the next couple of years to see City Bike expanding into?
I think City Bike, and I'm fairly convinced that this makes a lot of sense. Like, it is a network. It only is as strong as people's ability to move from one place to another. So you want to be doing it in an incremental way that builds upon a high functioning bike share system,
High-use bike
a
share
high use bike share system, right? So I know it's going to be expanding into Bay Ridge this year, which is really exciting. And I think there's going to be incremental moves outward from the core. And I think it's always going to be this balance of investing in really high ridership locations, really high demand places, meeting that demand that's pent up for people to take trips, doing rebalancing so it's easy to find a bike when you want one, and doing an enormous amount of investment in the infrastructure so more and more people in all these places feel comfortable and are excited to hop on a bike, which I think ridership is unbelievably high. It's growing year over year, every year. That's great to see, and I think we just got to keep that going.